Well, this is a real treat for me today. I'm with my fellow host from SCETV, another host from SCETV, Walter Edgar, whom you all know. And we are at Still Hopes. And I'm going to let Walter tell you the real name and the history of Still Hopes.
All right, Amanda, great to be with you. This is officially the Episcopal home at Still Hopes. It's operated by the 2 Episcopal dioceses here in the state. And the real history begins about 1950 when Miss Caroline Ginyard and the ladies at Trinity, the Daughters of the Holy Cross, that's the women's group, thought there needed to be a care place for older women.
Women at that time.
Women at that time. And it took about 10 years for things to get going, and then Miss Caroline Ginyard and her sister, Dr. Jane Bruce Ginyard, decided that they would leave the family home, Still Hopes, to the Episcopal Church. Actually, they left it to Trinity in the 60s. And it evolved over 10 years. They decided they'd do more than just the home. They needed to add, a facility, a kitchen, and what have you. It opened actually in 1977 with just 7 residents. The first 7 were all ladies, and if I would give you the names, they were your mama's friends, you would have known them.
Yeah.
But now we've got 300 residents in probably 220 units. And so it's gone from just the house to a 60-acre campus. And when our new Hopewell high-rise opens up, we'll have 300 units and about 450 people.
Gosh. Well, Walter, since you are a historian, I've shared with you that Dr. Ginyard, who we talked earlier, went to the medical school for women, because that was all that was there at the time, had come when my father contracted diphtheria and had quarantined and even taken my Aunt Mary to live with her, that she was one of the first women physicians here. And then neither she nor her sister married. And so we were always told that Still Hopes was perhaps that they were still hoping.
Well, that's what
for a night on a white horse.
That's one of the rumors, because there actually was another spinster sister that was, but the Ginyards had 3 plantations. The first one they had was called Chance in Edgefield County, then Rising Hopes, which still exists down on the Congaree River, and then Still Hopes. And the family will tell you that people were still hoping to be able to make something out of agriculture in difficult times.
And of course, this is a brick building, and we associate that with the Ginyard family.
Yes, of course, they had Ginyard Brickworks right down there on the banks of the Congaree. And since I do some gardening out here, I can tell you with the sand and the clay, I know why they had better luck with the brickyard than they did with trying to grow cotton.
Well, Walter, you now are a resident here with your second wife. You unfortunately lost your first wife. And you told me about the wonderful transformation in the grounds. And so I'm going to speak with Chris Spearen, who has caused this beautiful transformation. And I want to thank you so much for telling me what a marvelous job he's done in arranging for us to come and visit today.
It's my pleasure, and I hope to talk to you soon.
After Walter Edgar's description of Chris Spearen's horticulture skills, you can see why we've come to learn from him today. Chris, tell us what your position here is at Still Hopes and how you learned to be such a creative gardener.
Well, my title here is landscape supervisor, and myself and my crew, we do all of the landscaping and garden maintenance here on the campus. So everything and anything associated with gardening is what we do here, from turf grass management to laying out the vegetable gardens, all the flower beds, choosing plants, planting, and the maintenance and all that is what we do on a day-to-day basis. And my history with gardening here in South Carolina goes back several decades, almost to the point where I've been doing professional gardening in public settings for about 20 years.
Walter said that until you came, that there was very well maintained and attractive landscaping, but it was relying on just kind of a few standard plant
That's right. A lot of the landscaping here was kind of monochromatic. It was the same selections of, let's say, azaleas or loropetalums or Japanese hollies. And anyone that is serious about gardening in South Carolina knows we can do so much more than that. So, for instance, I've been utilizing a lot more varieties of camellias, hydrangeas, other woody plants, palms, so many different kinds of evergreens, and then mixing in and incorporating all sorts of perennials with different colors and textures, not only in the flowers but in the foliage too, to create something that is aesthetically pleasing year-round, and really the same kind of maintenance time associated with this landscape to something that's monochromatic.
And I think since the residents here mostly had been gardeners, they certainly appreciate having things that are more like what they would enjoy doing themselves and coming out and appreciating. And let's start actually with, as you drive in, does not look like the women on the Altar Guild at Trinity designed your entrance.
That's right.
If that's fair to say.
Yeah, there's some bold colors and patterns out there.
Let's talk about what's in there.
One of my favorite plants is a plant called Farfugium Japonicum. And
for the agriculture and horticulture, sometimes called tractor seat plant.
That's right. That's right. And it basically, it kind of almost looks like an evergreen hosta. It has big, round, glossy leaves. And then it also has these wonderful yellow daisy-like flowers in the fall and winter time. And then I combine that with different textures, like there's a carex out there, a yellow evergreen carex, or a sedge, called Everilla. And that combination of bright yellow with the glossy, bold leaves is quite striking. And then, you can see even around us the use of vegetables in our flower beds too. A lot of the different kinds of lettuce and kale that we grow, it's not only edible, but they're beautiful plants. And so I like to utilize, the winter vegetables and herbs with my pansies and violas and snapdragons and everything else, and just give the landscape a little bit more diversity in color and texture.
Well, and yard art, which is related to actual plants, is a specialty of yours. You love to make castings of elephant ears.
Yep.
Leaves.
One person described me of having the gift of God, like gaudiness. But yeah, so behind me here are some leaf castings that myself and my staff did. We basically took some elephant ears, laid them out in sand, mixed up some concrete, poured it over the leaf, let it cure for a few days. We flipped it over, peeled the leaf off. It left a perfect imprint. So we painted them and threw in some colored pumpkins, and pow.
And throughout the campus, we see that,
That's
and
right.
it's fun.
That's
and
right.
It just brightens. It makes you feel like coming to a retirement home might sound a little bit grim, but it certainly puts you in the mood of people who are having a wonderful life experience
Absolutely.
on this campus.
And that's one of my favorite things. I'm here to serve our residents, but my interactions with our residents, it's wonderful. Like you were saying, a lot of them were plantsmen and plantswomen before they came here to retire. And we have wonderful conversations on a daily basis with our residents about the plants they love and use.
Well, let's go back to building number 4, where when you came, it was a hedge of juniper, I guess, far
right.
taller than I am.
That's right.
And that was all that was there. And I think that immediately hit the chainsaw.
Yes, indeed. Building 4, which is what's called our McDowell building, is one of our focal entry points for residents and guests. And it was essentially just swallowed up by this giant evergreen juniper hedge that was 6-7 feet tall. So we ripped all of that out and started from scratch, and utilizing the same theme of working with colors and textures and seasonality of plants. We put in a mixed bed of different kinds of shrubs.
And let's talk about the fact that right now you've got 3 woody perennials. You've got the
I've got the gold euonymus.
Yes.
I've got a purple loropetalum.
yes,
And then I've got a grayish blue rosemary.
yes. And your vision is that eventually you'll have that kind of be a hedge down the road.
Absolutely. So that whole area was planted just this past summer. But my idea for the back of one of those beds is to have that evergreen hedge that will be different colors and textures. So over time, I'm going to allow the plants to get around 3 to 4 feet tall and start to hedge them into a solid hedge. And I think it'll be really nice.
And you and I have talked about the fact that you're not going to shear, you're going to punch holes, because shearing, if you don't go in and then punch some holes to allow for air movement and sunshine, you end up with unhappy plants.
And I've got a lot of experience. One of my mentors, her name is Tommy Moody. She's a wonderful gardener, and she actually taught me that technique when I was in my 20s. She had all sorts of boxwoods throughout her garden, and she was very, very meticulous about how to prune those and when to prune those. And so she showed me that technique of, like you were saying, punching holes in little areas that you can kind of hide a little bit with strategic pruning to allow light and airflow into the interior of the shrubs and the hedges.
Well, you've got some other wonderful things that won't last through the winter, but that fuchsia, good heavens. The salvia.
Salvia, that's right. The cultivar name on that one is called Rockin Fuchsia.
Woo!
It's a tall, about a 3.5 to 4 foot tall salvia, and that thing is a blooming machine. It was blooming when we planted it back in April, and so here we are in November, and it has no signs of slowing down. It's a great plant. The hummingbirds love it.
Yeah. And then you've got some fall color. You've got some pansies, and you've got purple elephant ears.
That's right.
I mean, it is just a wonderful riot of colors, but it blends very successfully with different textures and colors.
Right.
And I can't wait to see how it evolves over time. But as we walk up towards the door, you've got 2 marvelous containers that are sitting on, I guess I'd call them river rocks, or
yes, ma'am. Mexican beach stone is one of the is the stone.
A better word for it.
But I had basically framed in an area where I put that decorative stone, and then put my planters in the center, and they're matching planters on either side, so there's symmetry there, kind of walking up towards the door. And in those planters, I've got some wonderful bottle brush shrubs.
Yes.
And then some of the yellow carex, and then I've got the purple Triscantia, the one that kind of trails over the pots, and it looks nice.
And you've got, surprise, we have succulents and cactus.
That's right, and that's one of the things I'm a huge fan of, using those types of plants. I've been fortunate enough to travel throughout the southeastern U.S. and into northern Mexico, so I've brought back a lot of plants from my travels, and the succulents are one of them. I adore them because in the right spot, they require literally zero maintenance. You don't have to water them. Occasionally I go in there and clean up any of the dead, but they're great plants, very low maintenance, and they provide wonderful color and texture.
And the prickly pear cactus that you have is not prickly.
That's right.
So tell me a little bit about that.
That one is called Old Mexico. It's kind of like a pass-along plant from the desert Southwest, and it is virtually spineless. And I found some of it growing in an abandoned parking lot, and took some of it and threw it in my luggage and brought it home. So
and it didn't ruin your clothes because it didn't have the
No, man,
prickles.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So I've spread that plant out in a couple of different places around the campus. It's easy to root. I just pluck off one of the pads and let it kind of callus over, and then stick it in the ground, and 3 months later it's rooted.
And tell me what you've done sometimes when the pads get real big.
I'll carve smiley faces in them. Or I tried to do a peace sign one time, but that didn't work. And then I also carved an H and an I for high.
Oh.
So, little things like that.
And I think one of the residents had the sculpture leaves and
That's
asked
right.
you if you could incorporate them, and of course you did.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So I love working with my residents here with all sorts of creative ideas.
Well, where we're sitting right in front of the mansion, there had been a very, very large oak that had declined, and y'all removed that and replaced it with, I believe,
A ginkgo tree.
ginkgo.
That's right. That's right. It's a male, so it won't produce any of the fruit. But we only have 2 other ginkgo trees on the campus, and right up here in the mansion is a great place for one. They have some of the best fall color, albeit short-lived. But even the bark, the structure of the tree is quite lovely. And we were able to source one that's a good 14 to 15 feet tall. It's already got some size on it. And I look forward to watching it grow slowly.
And then around the edge, I just can't believe the variety of plant material you've got. It's just
Yeah.
wonderful. You can't stop using elephant ears, but
That's right.
and
That's
that's
right.
fun. But then you've got pineapple guava
Hmm.
for some color. You've got some Chemiciferous.
That's right.
Tell me some of the other plants that are your favorites that you've managed to install and blend together so harmoniously.
One of my favorite plants, it's a perennial. It's called Mule Grass, or sweet
Yes.
grass is another common name. It's a fall bloomer.
A
They're-
native?
Yes, ma'am. And their plumes almost look like floating cotton candy in
Yeah.
the air.
Uh-huh.
And it provides movement in the garden with the wind. It kind of blows around and it looks rather attractive. And I love the textures. I love the bold and the fine textures of, like you were saying, the Chemiciferous, the gold mop cypress, mixed with, the pineapple guava that's a bluish gray, mixed with some purple cordyline, yellow ligustrums. I've got a Goshiki false holly, which is a tea olive relative, rosemary. I've got papyrus, some European fan palms, all sorts of things out there.
It
Lovely
really
goodness.
is delightful. And then because it is a South Carolina campus, on the other side of the parking lot, you still have some wonderful azaleas that
That's
we all
right.
love so much.
We have a mix of all sorts of azaleas. We have the encore azaleas, then we have the traditional Formosa azaleas. We have a Pride of Mobile.
Yes.
We just
Which,
planted
of
that
course,
one.
Walter Edgar would want you to
That's
have since
right.
that's his home city.
That's
Yes.
right. So we have a good mix of the traditional and non-traditional here.
You have said that you have noticed that with the warmer weather we're having year after year, that the pruning is more demanding than it has been, and you've got fig vine in places and things that have to be sheared at times and pruned.
That's
And
right.
y'all are very conscious about not wasting things. You've got, as we look down the hill, we look into a beautiful wooded area.
Right.
And so tell me what you do to improve this clay sandy soil.
Well, I've been composting just as long as I've been gardening, even from when I was a child. And one of the first things I implemented here was a program to compost a lot of our cuttings, our trimmings from pruning, a lot of the old pine straw and leaf litter that we rake out. And very quickly, we were able to make some pretty large mounds that we have to turn with a big bobcat skid steer. And I started that composting about 2.5 years ago. So now we're at a point where we have usable compost to renovate large areas. We can bring in several cubic yards of fresh compost when we do a new planting. So this is all house made. It reduces, reuses, and recycles.
I know.
And I enjoy it. It makes the plants healthy. Healthy plants and healthy gardens are definitely built from the roots up. So it's made a dramatic impact on the health of our collections.
Talking about the health of things, y'all, in the past, as everybody in the South has, you've used crepe myrtles extensively,
Right.
and you have now had the unfortunate outbreak on your campus of the crepe myrtle bark scale. And so that means that you are going to have to treat those every year.
Yes, ma'am. We actually found one tree that was recently brought in and planted, and it had the crepe myrtle.
Probably came in from the nursery.
Right. And we immediately took that tree out and we destroyed it. But it's just a matter of time before it spreads around the campus. So we're being preemptive, and we're treating all of the crepe myrtles with a systemic insecticide. It's called Safari, and it'll take it up through the roots, and it will prohibit the crepe myrtle bark scale from taking hold of the crepe myrtles around the campus.
And you said that you are cautiously figuring out the proper time to apply it so it'll have the least effect on any pollinators that come later. But
That's
also
right.
you've decided not to plant anymore, that you're going to start using chase trees, I believe.
Yes, ma'am. Chase trees or vitex.
Yes.
That would be a good alternative, in my opinion. But
Wonderful pollinator plant.
That's right. But in my opinion, we should hold off on planting any more crepe myrtles until we have a full understanding of the pest pressure associated with this new insect. And we've got plenty of crepe myrtles in the meantime. We have nearly 100, so we've got plenty here.
And you do continuity, even though you do like to change things around and plant kale and all kinds of stuff and
That's
parsley.
right.
But there is continuity. You have beautiful magnolias. You have beautiful camellias and sasanquas, things that you would expect to see throughout the South.
Absolutely.
And they're used very effectively here.
And I love all those plants. You know, I love the history behind them. I love the variety and color, the different blooming cycles from the sasanquas to the japonicas. I love the fragrance of like August beauty gardenias.
And tea olive, of course, you've got tea olive everywhere we turn around.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Tea olive is probably my favorite shrub. A gentleman by the name of Ted Stevens, he owns a nursery
Certainly.
in North Augusta.
Yes.
He's been able to introduce all these newer varieties of tea olives, some with variegated foliage. To me, tea olives have the most heavenly fragrance. You know, I tell people when I die and go to heaven, the gates of heaven are going to smell like tea olives. I truly love them.
Well, I truly love what you have done here and what I've heard.
Thank you.
So do the residents. They see things that remind them of their own gardens, and they learn about new plants. And gardeners always want to be on the cutting edge. And you have certainly provided a marvelous way for people to keep their gardening knowledge up to the standards here. Thank you so much for what you've done here and for letting us come and visit.
You're quite welcome, and I appreciate your visit.